Here's a car that's been painted. It's a 1989 Mercedes. Now, we don't know how many times this car's been painted or wrecked. Being this old, possibly it's been painted at least twice. And it might have body damage underneath the paint somewhere. But what we have found, and I'm going to go ahead and move closer to the door here, is if we look right here, there's a crack in the finish. Now, that could be caused from 2 or 3 situations. There can be body work underneath this paint, and moisture got under the bodywork. When the car was painted, it could have got moisture underneath the paint and is starting to peel, or the clear that was used on this vehicle could have been a cheap, inexpensive clear, and it shrunk and cracked and didn't work properly. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this tool right here and we're going to find out what caused this problem. I'm going to show you how to fix it.
Welcome to D.I.Y. Automotive School with my friend Pete and Minnie, the body shop girl. It's everything you need to know about cars and more.
So if we look right here, here's our crack, and I see something else going on right here. Okay, that's just dirt. I'm going to go ahead, since we got to go down past the crack, and when I say past it, we got to go underneath it. I'm going to take a poker tool, and I'm going to lightly lift up on that to see what happens. And I can see that the paint or whatever it is really loose under here. I'm also starting to see body work. You can see where we're looking at body work right here underneath the paint. So what I'm speculating is that there's body work underneath this paint that has either been there a very long time or it's just starting to deteriorate. So let me go ahead and, okay, look what we got here. Look at this. Yeah, that's called piss poor bodywork action right there. You can see where it's just peeling off. Look at this. It's just peeling off, and underneath that you can see that the surface was not prepped properly. You can see whoever did this body work on this door, the surface of the door itself is not even prepped. They basically, I don't even think they sanded that. Let's see what's going on. Yeah, look at this. Here we go. Look at it, just coming off. Let me get a screwdriver so we can go a little farther with that. Instead of using a screwdriver, let's go ahead and use a putty knife. And what we got to do is we got to break that Bondo out all the way to where it won't break out anymore. And it looks like we got it. But look at the surface right there. That surface was not prepped properly. And what happened is somebody applied Bondo to that. Let me get a good angle on it. somebody applied some Bondo to a surface that wasn't prepped properly. And the reason I could tell that because I don't see any sand marks or anything on that. That's pretty pathetic bodywork for being a Mercedes-Benz. And when this car was purchased, the car was over $100,000 car. So what we're going to do to start this off is I'm going to take my little roll-lock grinder. It's got 36 grit on it, and we're going to go ahead and remove as much Bondo as we can until it quits peeling off. And as I'm using this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually prep this surface up so the Bondo or the filler that we apply back to this will actually adhere to it. Now you see here when I sand that, do you see how it's going down to bare metal? Do you see that? And what that's telling me is that's telling me that somebody had some kind of, there was already paint on this door or some kind of primer or something, and they relied on that to be their surface for preparation.
Now, did you just see that right there? Did you just see what I showed you right there? The surface that Bondo was on was either epoxy primer or it was old paint. More than likely it was epoxy primer. Or it was the factory primer. We don't know. But that's a good lesson to learn that your bodywork, your body filler, your Bondo, whatever you want to call this bullshit, should always be applied to bare metal. This is a very good example of a situation that says Bondo is made for metal, not for fucking painted surfaces. Plain and simple.
I really don't want to go any further than that because we don't know how much Bondo's on this thing. I mean, look at the big dent that I've already made on it. Indention, you might say, using my grinder, and you can see that it's going right down to the metal, but it's just a big area. So we're going to stop there. I noticed that it's not peeling off anywhere here. And then what I'll do next is I'll take my D.I.Y sander and I'll sand that down to prep up all the area around this. So I got my D.I.Y sander here, and what we're using is we are going to use 80 grit to prep up the painted surface. What we're doing is we're going from 36 to 80 so we can feather everything out. Just like that right there. The next thing we want to do, we want to go ahead and mix up some filler. Now on this particular job that we're doing, it is going to take at least 2 passes. That means we're going to have to put filler on it at least twice. So the first Bondo mix that we are going to make is we'll take our Bondo and we will go ahead and mix up enough. We want to make sure that we got enough there to mix up so we can fill that in and feather out all the edges. Anytime you mix up Bondo, always take your hardener and knead it. What kneading means is what I'm doing here. I'm mixing all the compounds and structures up inside the tube to make sure that we're not just pouring out liquid here. Alright, we're going to mix up our Bondo, and then we're going to go over there, and then we will fill in our imperfection, we'll call it, and we're going to overfill it so when we sand it, it will all feather out the way we want it.
Now's the time that you want to hit the subscribe button, click on that bell for notifications, and comment below. Because if you don't, this big blob of Bondo is going to be inside your bed covers tonight when you crawl in there, and it's going to get in places that we really don't want to talk about right now. Do, my friend, pay the favor and subscribe. Now, do it. or that Bondo's going to do you.
Okay, you notice I'm using a small Bondo spreader on this. I'm not using a big one. And I'm going to overfill it. I want to overfill that. I'm going to make it big. So see how I'm doing that? Because what's going to happen is our Bondo is going to shrink a little bit when we apply it. It won't shrink much, but it will shrink. So I'm going to overfill the center. Just like that. And what we're looking at here, this is called piss poor body work, okay? When you have to go back on somebody's body work because the Bondo peeled off and then you find out that they didn't even prep the surface properly, that's what you call rip off action, all right? And that's when you say that right there to whoever did this. All right, now that our filler has dried, what we're going to do is we're going to take our D.I.Y sander one more time with 36 grit on it, and then we're going to go ahead and break it down. Now remember, I went ahead and filled that in. I overfilled it because what happened is when I ground that down to prep the surface up, it made a, shallow area that we had to refill. And then now you can see that we properly filled our area where there was possibly a dent or whatever was going on with this door. And before we did that, we properly prepped the surface. That's the most important thing when it comes to doing this. You got to be able to prep your surface right. If you don't, you get screwed in the ass. Now, before we put any more type of filler on it, whether it's Bondo or polyester, what we want to do is we want to take a nice firm hand block and we want to block this out by hand. Always remember that doing your body work by hand is the best way to do your body work. Air tools are only used for breaking it down and getting it in shape to where you want it. But to finish it out properly, you got to do it by hand with a good hand block. So I got 36 grit on here because we're going to refill this one more time. And then what I'm doing is I'm making sure there you go. Look at there. See that? Right there. What I did, I overrode. Okay, when I say override, that means I went farther than where the dent is. By the time we get done with this, we're going to reprime this whole area right here, inside this area. All due to the fact that Bozo, the clown, did body work on this and did a shitty job. But you're the one that's going to pay for it, all right, in the end. This is a problem that a lot of body shops, a lot of professionals run into, is they get these hokey-pokey repairs where the surface wasn't prepped properly. They threw it on there. What do they call these kind of cars? They call them spray and go, or whatever it is. It's like used car lot action over here. And then the customer that buys the vehicle, he's the one that gets screwed because he's the one that's got to deal with this. That's how crooked the system is. But we're not going to get into all that because what we're here for is to learn how to fix the problem, not cause the fucking thing. Or I guess we are here to learn how to actually cause it if you don't fix it right. What's so hard about that? If you look right here real close, you're going to look at some pinhole action. All right? We can't do that. We can't leave that like that. So what we're going to do to really make this look nice, we're going to go ahead and put a coat of polyester filler on it. And then, of course, we're going to probably cover this whole area that we've been sanding. And what that'll do, that will fill in all the deep scratches. And then you'll see what's going on after that. All right, so what we got here, we got some polyester filler. You can see how nice and creamy that is. Totally different than using Bondo. And I got my hardener. Now, I kind of made a little too much, and I always do that. But that's okay. We're going to go ahead and mix it up. And I'm still using my small spreader. I'm not using a medium or a large. We want to kind of contain the situation, if you know what I mean. We don't want to overdo it. But on a situation like this, there's really no way out but to do it the way that we're doing it. So let's go ahead and take our polyester filler, and then we're going to go ahead and put a nice thin coat on that. We're not going to put a real thick coat this time. This is our finish coat. This is how we're finishing it. And you can see how I'm going here. I'm going to fill all these scratches in where my DA hit. I want to make sure that all those are filled in. And then we're going to make sure it goes on nice and smooth with no streaks. Really important. And that should be our final coat on this mess. Right there. So I'm speculating that whoever sold this car on eBay paid somebody to paint the car. And before they painted it, they went around and did shady body work because, you know, once they sell it, they don't give a shit. And that, to me, that's poor craftsmanship. That's shitty ass attitude, you might say. I don't care what you do. Okay, even if you are selling a car, you should have pride in the work that you do. All right, this blow and go used car lot shit doesn't cut it with my friend Pete. I don't even work on used car lot cars due to the fact that they're cheapskate pieces of shit and they want everything dirt cheap and free, and I can't afford that. I can't afford to put my name on a car that they want to get done for $25. All right, that's not my realm of thinking here, guys. All right, we're going to let that dry. We're going to come back. We'll hand sand that. We're going to get a good look at it, and you're going to see the finished product as we continue to do it right, because if you're not doing it right, then I'm not satisfied, because I'm not doing my job showing you how to do it right. All right, now that our polyester filler is dry, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my block with the 36 grit still on it, and all I'm going to do is get that glaze coat off of the filler itself. All right, now that we've got it down to that, let's go get some 80 grit, and we'll continually blocking it down to a finer grit sandpaper ready for primer. So I got my 180 on my block, and I'm still doing all this by hand. We're not going to use any more air tools on this. And what my goal is here is to feather everything out on the edges and to make sure that all my deep scratches from the 36 grit are filled. Okay, what we're going to do now, we're going to swap over to 180, and then this situation that we just ran into is pretty much a done deal. The only thing we'll have to do then is prime and paint, and it's done right. We'll never have to worry about it coming back, peeling off, or acting like some silly ass squeezy bastard out in the gutter, because that's whoever did this is what they are. Really. Really. There you go. Now, you're probably looking at that and you're saying, I don't understand why he used that Evercoat on there, that polyester filler, and he filled that much space up. I'm going to show you why, okay? Let me show you. Remember I was telling you about deep scratches from the 36 grit? Look what we got here, all right? Do you see all them deep scratches that we left behind? Look at right here. Okay? Very important to go ahead and use your polyester filler after your Bondo to make sure that you get all the deep scratches. And remember we had pinholes right here? Well, they're gone now. So this surface is now ready for primer, and then we will go ahead and paint the door. And then after that is accomplished, this job will be professionally done. It's done right. I showed you how to do it at home, doing it the proper way. The only air tool that we used on this was a little small air grinder and a D.I.Y sander. Everything else was done by hand. Once I prime it, I'll go ahead and hand sand this door. We'll tape it off, we'll paint it, and it'll be a done deal.
Thanks for watching D.I.Y. Automotive School. Classes don't stop till you know everything.